and welcome back to yet another exciting week of the Lazy Money Game. In this week's episode, I'm going to give an update to my portfolio and answer some questions which I have received from the audience as well. And since my last video was about banking failures, we will of course have to talk about that as well, since the latest victim has been claimed, namely First Republic Bank. So let's start with a portfolio update. The first thing we noticed was that there was a red circle for this week's episode, meaning that the portfolio is down in value compared to last week. The next thing you notice is that the cost has significantly changed, meaning that I have done new investments. So if we go to the portfolio values tab, the last time I posted a video was back here in week 10, and you can see that the cost has increased with roughly $8,500, and at the same time that the value of the portfolio has increased with $13,000, despite the fact that I actually had a drop of close to $7,000 within this week. So naturally, we will have to address the reasons for that as well. So if we start by going back to the overview, I can scroll all the way to the top, just so you can see all the holdings in the portfolio. Well, then you notice that there's a new holding, or rather I should say a holding that I have had previously in my portfolio, which I have now added again, and that is Bank of America with the ticker code BAC. And just to give you a little more of the history here, if we go to the history tab, then you can clearly see that Bank of America has been a previous holding in my portfolio. It was actually one of my original holdings, meaning that I bought it back in January and February of 2020, and then I sold them in April of 2021. This was not due to the fact that I had lost faith in Bank of America. This was unfortunately due to this reason that I was going to leave Revolut instead of transferring the shares. But in this case, it actually turns out that I was quite lucky doing so, since my original purchase was a little more than $33 per share, and I sold them at a little more than $39 per share. But if we go back to the overview icon, then you can see that my latest acquisition here is a buy value of a little more than $28 per share. And just to be clear, the reason why I say that I am lucky, if we go to Seeking Alpha here and look at the share price for Bank of America over the last 5 years, I got in here just before the crash in 2020. And I sold here in April of 2021 due to this change of brokerage. And I mean, if I hadn't done that, then I would still have my original position, since not a lot has changed for me when it comes to my investment into Bank of America. But of course you could say I would only have been lucky if I have gotten out much closer to the top during 2022. Well, this is simply just Mr. Market at its finest. Sometimes the shares are trading at below $20 even for Bank of America, and they have been close to $50 over a period of 2 years. And don't come and tell me that Bank of America's business has changed so much within 2 years that the business itself should be worth more than double the amount that it was in 2020. So the natural question to ask at this point in time is, of course, why do I want to own shares in Bank of America today? Well, as I have just explained, basically my view towards how Bank of America is run has not really changed. And since Mr. Market is currently not liking Bank of America or bank stocks in general, that means that the price has come down. So I'm capable of getting in at a level which I see as attractive. Of course, I have no clue to whether or not we will go all the way down to 20 or perhaps even further down before we may eventually hit 50. So this is my reasoning for buying in currently. To me, it looks like Mr. Market really do not like this. Hence, I think I can buy them at an attractive valuation. So this was some of the good news in the portfolio with respect to Bank of America. If we then turn to some of the bad news, then we just have to go one line up and take a closer look at Activision Blizzard, since unfortunately the UK regulators has stepped in to block this all-cash transaction deal from Microsoft. So now Microsoft is trying to figure out if they want to see if they can appeal the verdict or if they want to take their business elsewhere. So naturally, the stock market reacted quite severely to this. The shares in Activision Blizzard actually dropped more than 10% when this news was announced. So a good question to ask now is, of course, has this changed my view with respect to my investment in Activision Blizzard? Well, of course, the stock market has a severe reaction when it seems like this deal is off the table, at least in the UK. But how about everywhere else in the world? I will simply sit and wait until I know more. Until then, I won't do anything to this holding. And of course, this significantly impacts my performance since this holding is by far the largest. It takes up a little more than 18% of my entire portfolio. If we then continue to my favorites tab, namely the dividends tab, then we can see that March has finalized and April has finalized since my last posting of a video. So let me just dig into the numbers here. The difference between March and December is a little more than $50. Unfortunately, it's down. This is due to the fact that South Jersey Industry is no longer in my portfolio. They were delisted, they were been taken private, so all my shares were sold there. Of course, they were reinvested into Citigroup, as you know. And if you look to the difference here between January and April, there is no difference. This is due to the fact that I have just received dividends from the three usual suspects, namely Merck, VG, and Agree Realty Corporation. So if we then look to the quarterly dividend graph here, since Q1 has finalized, well then unfortunately we can see here that it is no smooth sailing, that my dividends are actually shrinking quarter over quarter at the moment. Well, I just have to be patient. I know that this will grow again eventually. This is of course what happens when you have companies being delisted and that you are investing and then have to be patient and wait for those companies to pay out dividends. And at the same time, when you decide to put close to 20% of your holding into a very low dividend paying company that only pays once a year, naturally you will see stuff like this happens, as I have explained earlier. So what I can be happy about when I'm looking into my dividends here is my latest acquisition into Bank of America. They will give me close to $56 after the withholding tax on a quarterly basis. If we then turn to questions from the audience, then I have received a question that goes like this. Hey there, thanks for a very informative video. I just found your channel and I'm very excited that I found someone with a similar interest in Denmark. I have a question. Does it really pay off to spend time on reporting tax for e.g. 50k instead of using a broker like Saxo, which report all the tax automatically? First of all, thank you very much for that excellent question. And the short answer would be obviously no, it do not make sense to do the reporting yourself, since chances are if you have 50k to invest, I presume this is in Danish kroner, then you probably do not have the knowledge about how to do the reporting, so you will have to spend a tremendous amount of time trying to figure out how to do this as well. So that would be the short answer if you do not intend to invest more. But if you view this the same way as I look into investment, namely that you should be willing to learn and you will keep on accumulating your knowledge and your wealth, then at some point it will be worth it for you if you can save enough by doing so. And the reason why I decided to do this was to show that it was actually possible, but for sure it is not worth the time in the beginning. And a lot of things has actually happened since I started this channel, so I don't really think it makes sense to use Revolut anymore for dividend growth investing. At least it does not make sense to me, since they decided to increase their custody fee by a factor of 12. And since I'm all about the long term, I made that quick decision to leave Revolut. So when you're seeing my videos today, I'm using Nordnet, but whether you go with Saxo or Nordnet, I think that is a question of what preferences you have, since they offer different products and they are a little different in service. But as long as you use one of those two, then I think if you're living in Denmark, you are doing quite well, since I think it is very hard to find something which is cheaper or better than one of those two options. But whether you use Saxo or Nordnet, I think that is a personal preference, and I don't really have much to say about it. If we then turn to another question which I have received from time to time, that is, when is the Woodstock of capitalism? When does the annual shareholder meeting of Berkshire Hathaway takes place? And I'm happy to inform you that usually takes place in the first weekend of May, meaning this coming weekend. So that actually sums it up for yet another exciting week of the Lazy Money Game. And if you're wondering why the value of the portfolio here you're seeing on the screen now is not the same as the value on the thumbnail for this video, it is not a mistake. I was actually so lazy in the weekend that I didn't manage to finish my recording. So I had to do the walk of shame and finish my recording while the market was open. And now all of you know, just in case you were curious about that. Hopefully you have enjoyed the content and made it all the way to the end of the video. If you have, then please consider leaving a like or subscribe to the channel. It really helps me out a lot. And until I see you next time, bye!